Hello, welcome back to Deep Images. We are back with bizarre and unusual film talk. I'm co-host Henry Covert, and I have my incredible co-hosts Steve Roberts and Justin Cotton live from Australia, and we are continuing our amazing series on strange love stories. We have covered some heavy duty ones and some obscurities. So some of the usual suspects and some that you wouldn't expect, and you might not want to watch, but they're great. So today we're going to talk about one that kind of could fit in any of those categories. I'm going to take the helm for a bit, but my two co-hosts have both seen this movie, so we're kind of doing a little mini symposium informally. And I'm talking about Possession from 1981 by Andrzej Zulawski, starring Sam Neill and the effervescent Isabella Johnny, who won Best Actress at Cannes Film Festival for this movie. So to most people, this is known as a horror movie, for good reason, but it wasn't really intended exactly to be a strictly genre movie. Uh, CF knows more about this period of Zulawski's life than I do, but from what I understand, I mean, I knew this was a double divorce for him. From his wife, who was an actress, had a horrible divorce that began in 1976. And in 1980, he was still depressed as hell and suicidal, and told his friends he was suicidal. And he was trying to do this incredible project called On the Silver Globe, which the unfinished version exists, and it's one of the most brilliant science fiction films ever made. And but Poland had other ideas. They didn't like Zulawski, so he finally cut all the ties with his homeland. His wife was part of that, So he wanted to make a film that kind of got cathartically got some of this out of him, but tinged with other elements. And it's kind of like psychological stuff that's externalized. And in his case, he wanted to shoot it in West Berlin because he wanted to make a statement about the West versus the East, and nuclear war being possibly imminent, and how he didn't like communist sword hapless, from what I understand. That was the perfect place to do it. So he literally filmed most of his scenes on location, often in the street, literally a few feet from the actual Berlin Wall. So the streets are beautiful in Berlin, and they're shaped. The buildings and streets are shaped nothing like. I live in the southern United States. They're nothing like here, and these long cobblestone streets and just these crazy V-shaped buildings, and the lighting is beautiful. Cinematography. I want to give this guy credit, Bruno Neuten, and this guy is just amazing. Every shot of this movie is like pure art. The lighting is wonderful. The way he reflects the light off of the streets and the buildings is incredible. And the way the shots come in on the people, he does a lot of like worm eye shots, and then he does like crane angles. And then he also used an early Steadicam. So this is like a year maybe after Kubrick on The Shining. The Steadicam was not commonly used in Europe yet, but he got on it. So um, just beautiful filmmaking, very fluid, and essentially it is a love story, a strange love story. You have a marriage that's been going on for an indeterminate amount of time, and Mark is mainly our protagonist. The movie is mainly from his point of view, though a bit of it is from his wife's. Mark is played by Sam Neill. This was an early role of Sam Neill's. uh, it really, to me, it defies description. I've always liked Sam Neill, but this is like a bar super high. That guy, he explores every emotion. He does every kind of physical stunt. I mean, it's just like, and he said after the movie, he said, I was pretty close to losing my sanity for good. And Isabel Johnny, I believe, tried to commit suicide after the film and
Mm,
failed. And of course, during the filming, the director
thankfully.
was suicidal, literally. So it's a miracle this got made and finished, and that these three people went on to have lives, instead of all being in a trauma unit. And basically, Mark is like our kind of he's a secret agent, but that's kind of like a plot device. He's using like a genre trope because you never really learn exactly what he's doing. But the casting was good. Now it took me many watches to figure out that he was really a true secret agent. I like thought him, and then I had to read a bunch of reviews. And then I'm like, oh, okay, right. And then I'm like, oh, that's why they cast him, because he's like a handsome, well, he's not British, but I mean, he's a New Zealander, and he's a countryman of original countryman of Justin here. And but he's the kind of guy had that kind of look around that time, like people like David Warbeck, who were considered as people who could replace Roger
Yeah.
Moore, but instead they hung on to Roger Moore for 5 more years foolishly. But they did get Timothy Dalton, represent Timothy Dalton, and
Ooh.
so Sam Neill had that kind of look, and but he doesn't play that kind of character at all. I mean, he plays that kind of character in that he tries to outsmart and outwit everyone in the movie. His goal is to keep his wife from leaving him. That's his number one goal. Then when he finds out she's cheating, his number two goal is to get revenge on that guy. But things are not simple at all. So, from the beginning, it's basically like these conversations you come in the middle of, and it's like, what do you need? What do you want? What can I do? How can I improve? Do you understand? Do you love me? I don't know. I don't know. And this is, well, Johnny. So she plays Anna. And her character is fairly opaque to me most of the movie. Um, I think most people who go into this movie the first few times are going to think she's just insane and being spiteful to him until they find out the final twist. That's what I thought. I mean, I still thought the acting was brilliant. Her acting was brilliant, but I did not sympathize with her character. But I began to examine some of the scenes over time, and especially today. There are a couple of monologues about two-thirds of the movie where you start to see what her deal is, and
Yeah.
it's some incredible next level writing. It's very existentialist. The
Yeah.
dialogue will put off a lot of people. If you don't like big words, you're not going to like this movie at all. You're going to hate it. And I know of a few critics, I won't name them, who have called this pretentious shit because of that. Okay, I'll name one of them, Kim Newman, but no, I won't name the ones I personally know. But it's like, okay, well, dude, something wrong with an intelligent script? Do you think people who are learned, like Anna and Mark obviously are, that they don't use words more than one syllable long? They don't communicate at a certain level. But that's what sucks about Mark, because Mark is super intelligent, but he's reduced to uh, monosyllables. And literally, he has a nervous breakdown and for 3 weeks sequesters himself in a hotel, drinking, not shaving, not bathing.
Mm.
He forgets how to speak. Now that's an extreme. I mean, Zulawski's probably like, okay, Sam, you forgot how to speak. What are you gonna do? How are you gonna play this? And he pretty much sells it. It's a little funny. He's like,
Yeah.
um, but they get him to do a lot of stuff. So this movie is really known for not for a whole movie, but especially for Isabella Johnny. This school of acting that me and Chuck talked about when we discussed Diable,
Yeah.
on the Demons, Devils, Black Magic series, and Chuck went into a bit of that. And one of our helpful viewers told us that the man's name was Grotowski, who pioneered this method in Poland. And so this is the characters are very animated, they're very physical, and after you watch the movie a few times, you start to examine their body language and break it down and try to figure out how much of these things are physical reactions, like to pain, how much of them are emotional reactions, like they're upset and they're going insane,
It's berserk.
but how much of them, and I want y'all to think about this too, you probably have, how much of them are induced by this unhuman entity with telepathic telepathic force that just is negative energy. So it's doesn't have special effects to show this. When I get to the being with negative energy, they do show him, and it's some of the most brilliant effects I've ever seen. And it's hard for the brain to reconcile what it is. It was created by Carlo Rambaldi, who designed E.T. He also finished the alien design for Giger. He actually did the actual head skull. He did the tortured dogs and don't torture duckling, and went to court and had to prove he wasn't really killing dogs. So
Mm.
Rambaldi's had an amazing makeup career. He's a brilliant special effects guy. So, and this is one of those movies that even people who don't really like it or haven't seen it, but who know somewhat about movies, they're like, "Oh yeah, Carlo Rambaldi worked on that movie." Um, so these two go back and forth. She's trying to leave, he's trying to get her to stay, and frankly, it's very realistic and it's a little over dramatic, but it is realistic in the tone of when you get, I've been in a relationship, a one relationship particularly like this, when you don't know how to deal with these things, your partner seems to be losing their mind, and then you start losing your mind, and you're doing whatever you can to sink in with them, and everything you try, it gets worse and worse and worse and worse, and then you resort to, you backslide, you start having sex with them again, and then you hate each other. The only difference between this story and my story is in my real life, we didn't cut each other or cut each other's flesh, but that's a resort that's gone to in this, um, which is very similar to a few movies we've already discussed on strange love stories. This on Secretary and In the Realm of the Senses, they're the ones we talked about. This borderline behavior where the people have all this angst and they take it out on themselves, and by they're tearing their flesh, cutting their flesh, burning themselves. And so there's a little bit of that. They don't go deep into it. And it's not like In the Realm of the Senses, by the way, but but in a way it's worse. But they don't go into that level of self mutilation. But that element is there. A shocking scene where she's holding an electric knife, and man, it made me never want to be around one of those things. Like, what if it slips, man?
Yeah.
She like puts it right up to her neck, just bursts the skin and just screams. And again, it's these crazy shots, very kinetic. And if he's trying to save her, and this is in the middle of an argument, she's grinding meat, and then she just decides, oh, and he's asking all these questions about there's someone else, right? He doesn't know who someone else is, but she more or less says, "Hey, yeah, I'm having an affair," without clearly saying that, like someone rational might do, and then like leave before the husband went crazy. But in this case, she's kind of like, "Yes, okay, yes," and Mark is like, "How long have you known him?" A long time. All these vague answers. Do you like him better than me? Yes. Is he better in bed than me? Yes. It's just, everything she says is just like you feel this mortal wound to Mark. I mean, because I've been there. It's like you don't want to hear this. You do not want to hear
Mm.
this shit when
Oh
you're
yeah.
getting dumped. And I wasn't married. These two were married and have a son named Bob. So much like Lucio Fulci's movies of the 80s, there has to be a child named Bob as part of the Deus Ex Machina. I don't know if that's a
Well, yeah.
coincidence or what, but there's a lot of talk about Bob. So Bob
Mm.
is the little actor. I don't know his name. He has a British accent. It's different. His mom has a French accent. Sam Neill has a New Zealand accent, and
Mm.
the boy has like a London accent. He's kind of like sounds like a
Yeah.
Charles Dickens character. He kind of looks like one too. He's like a little Muppet, but he's very adorable, but not cloying. He's not like a Steven Spielberg character. He's actually credible, and he's not dubbed like the Fulci Bobs. And actually, early in the movie, there's a foreshadowing with Bob, which I missed the first 20 times I saw the movie. He's in the tub.
Oh
When you first meet Bob, he's in the tub and he's just playing around. He goes ee, 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 ooh, and he's doing like the air raid siren like you hear at the beginning of Black Sabbath War Pigs.
yeah.
And that's him being
Wow.
that's him being kind of precognitive really about his own fate.
Whether he knows it or not,
Whether he knows it or not. Yes.
I'm sure he
Well, you
does.
feel a lot of sympathy for Bob because he's just a child. He's about 11 years old or something, but he's in the middle of this vortex of his parents just going off the rails.
Yes. What a vortex it is.
He handles it pretty well, I have to
Very
say.
intense. Yeah.
Yeah, he stays pretty nonpartisan, but of course the dad is trying it beyond a point. Mark is trying to turn the boy against the mother, and but more so against the mother's lover. So the little boy has met the mother's lover. We found his name is Heinrich. He's a German cat. Well, okay, this takes place in West Berlin, so makes sense. I guess he's a native. Heinrich is played by this guy named, I think his name's like Heinz Benent. I have seen him in some other movies. He's a classy dude. He was in Lost Honor of Katarina Blum.
Mm.
He was on Want to Live. The Tin Drum. I think that's probably what I know him the most from.
Ooh.
He
Oh
was in
yeah.
The Last Metro. Classy
Yeah.
international actor. And
Heinrich is what the psychologists tend to refer to as a pretentious fuck.
yeah, he is a pretentious fuck. But you know what? I think near the end, I think he is genuinely in current with mystical and emotional currents. I think he's really tuned in. I'm not saying he's because see we're
He's
seeing
not happy about it.
no, see we're seeing this movie through Mark's eyes. So
Yeah.
Mark immediately thinks he's pretentious. Even though Mark's very intelligent, Heinrich's like super brainy and he wants you to know it every minute. And
Oh yeah.
he wants to confound you with philosophy and deflect criticism by saying he loves you when he's fucking your wife. You know, so
Yeah.
he's a
Well,
trip. But again, the physical acting. He knows martial arts and he does a lot of martial arts and Tai Chi kind of poses and shit. And some of them just while having dialogue, you know. And but the thing is, the director's not unaware of the absurdity of this because Mark himself looks like he's going to laugh his ass off, and sometimes does when, when Heinrich acts that way. And eventually Heinrich begins like pretending to capitulate to him, like, "Oh, you are so brilliant, Heinrich, and I love you too. I love everyone." Your and the one thing he says when he goes, "You and your yin yang balls dangling from your Zen brain," you know, it's like so. Mark's a pretty
I
catty.
love the way their rapport turns out
Yeah, it's
towards the
beautiful.
end.
Mark is catty as hell, but you know the guy is fucking his wife. It's fair. Let's be fair. So he, he has the right to be a little catty.
Well,
Uh,
Mark kind of turns on him like a vicious dog more and more,
yeah,
and it's beautiful.
because I wanted them to be friends by the end of the movie because that's obviously what Heinrich wanted and the mother wanted. But
Yeah,
okay, we're jumping ahead a little, but
yeah.
yes, I mean their relationship is really bizarre.
We'll get there.
Yeah, and uh key things that happen the key situation other than the home life with Bob, which Anna keeps abandoning and coming back, and after Mark has his little breakdown, he just goes and says to her, "I'm taking over here," you know, and he just basically tells her to get the hell out. He's going to raise his son, you know. And he had a little spy mission that they talk about early in the movie, him and his superiors, and they're trying to get him to do another similar mission, but he doesn't want to do it. And you get the vague impression, because actually Heinrich notes this toward the end of the movie, that Mark has quite a bit of money socked away. He has no problem raising this kid. He's got, you know, he eventually gets some help raising it, but um, Anna, meanwhile, is going to see Heinrich, and that's all that Mark is focused on. So once he sees the name Heinrich, he hears the name Heinrich. Uh, he becomes obsessed with him through almost the whole movie because he doesn't realize Heinrich's really not the root of the problem. Heinrich's for all his horrible faults is also a victim of what's really going on. And so uh, there's an apartment that's kind of like derelict, you know, with these really beat up, dirty rooms, and it's located on Sebastianstrasse 87 in West Berlin. That might have been the real name of the street. I don't know. And that is where a lot of creepy things happen. That's one place where that she's been having sex with Heinrich, Anna, but it's also a place where something weird is happening with her. So you know you don't know. It seems to be mental disintegration. Like she's literally losing her mind, and but then you have to leaven that against Mark's point of view because if you're in Mark's point of view, that's what you're saying. Yeah, my wife's losing her mind because she's leaving me. But then Mark kind of inadvertently confesses how his point of view is also kind of toxic. He meets a woman called Helen, who's also played by Isabella Johnny, and wears a different wig with little Buddy Page bangs and ponytails, and she's got green
Yeah.
contact lenses.
She's like other Anna.
Yeah, she's other Anna. She's like Anna that Mark wishes Anna was probably, you know,
Yeah.
an obedient housewife or whatever. She's
Yeah.
not totally obedient. We find
Complacent.
there's some layers. You know, she tutors Bob at school. He goes to the school where she works, and when Mark meets her, he's like, "Is this a joke?" He thinks it's Anna, you know, fucking with him. So after you realize this is a different person, of course he gets kind of a crush on her. And she comes over, talk to Bob and talk about Bob, and he kind of hits on her, but then he's also like, I'm at war with women, you know. And he just starts going this. He goes, they are poisoning the universe, you know. And so she like gives him a dressing down for like 3 solid minutes about how She doesn't even use these words. She's basically saying you are a misogynistic fuckhead, you know, but doing it in a really philosophical way. And then after that's over, they decide to sleep together. So But once they're sleeping together naked, they decide not to have sex. So it's really, you never know what's going to happen in this film, and that's the beauty of it. So that's a plot device, I guess you could say, the setting up of the doppelganger, which becomes important later in the movie. Um, so he's kind of, even though he's talking to this woman, a lot of characters in a lot of movies in that situation would then like just go for the new woman and forget about the old woman, you know. But he's not like that. Even though he's infatuated with this woman because she looks like Anna, he's still absolutely obsessed with Anna, way over
Mark
her.
can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to have real Anna. So he, Anna, finally Heinrich confronts him. They have a little argument, and Heinrich has to do some kung fu on him and beat the shit out of him while he's giving him these Zen dialectics. And it's just an amazing scene for a guy to spit out that kind of dialogue while doing all this kind of stuff and hitting his marks. That's some great acting and directing. So Mark is humbled and beaten. And this begins where what Chuck was saying, like, you know, they have a relationship. It's like a love-hate relationship. And I know some people who have been in that situation. Well, I've been in that situation too, where you're with a woman, your friend cheats with the woman, or another man cheats with the woman, and then the woman does something really bad to both of you, and then you find yourselves allied against her for a brief time. It's kind of has a messed up dynamic, but that's kind of what sort of starts to happen. That's what Heinrich wants to happen, but Mark is just, he's bitter. So he's not going to let it go. He still thinks Heinrich's the cause of all his problems. And Heinrich pretty much tells him, "You are the cause of your problems." But there's no real evidence that Mark did anything to Anna prior to this. I mean, there's no inkling at all. And maybe he did, you know, but the first time he strikes her ever is during one of their arguments at the apartment. And he strikes her a couple of times and he says, "That's for lying," you know, and
Yeah, that is such a delivery, and it's so extreme.
I accidentally paused the movie on that last night. So when I came
Yeah,
back in the room, he's going with that face, and it's all like,
yeah.
it's like so scary.
It's like his whole face contorts, and it's almost like he's just those words force their way out of his throat, and they sound really kind of abnormal and twisted when he does. Just
Yeah, I mean, it's like you see him being basically broken apart as a human being and
yeah.
trying to reconstitute himself.
It's
And
like I literally felt like a lot of the time I felt like I was watching the actors breaking themselves to pieces against the movie.
that's a good way to
Mm.
put it because yeah, definitely. I mean, you kind of get used to Anna and Johnny being histrionic and doing a lot of pushback and saying crazy things. You kind of get used to it up to a point, but you know, once you get into this well into the second act, she takes it way to a much higher level. So then you're like, that's the test if you're going to stick with this movie or not. Um,
Mm.
because there's a lot of screaming in it. It makes Ali Carter look like a quiet place. I mean, it's just like a lot of screaming. Um, it might be therapeutic for you to watch it, or if you like Ian Gillan or Rob Halford, you know, you might really dig it. James Brown, you know, but
That's
it's like,
probably why the actors had mental difficulties, particularly Anna Rajani after the film, because of the extent to which they've been pushed, particularly her, by the director to
mhm.
get the outcome.
Yeah,
Well,
Um,
just think about it. She did this and Nosferatu back to back, more or less,
oh well.
he
and
actually did a movie right after this, and I forget what it
okay,
is.
yeah,
Everybody would know what it is if I named it. It was a famous art house movie. And basically, technically, and this used to be true of Oscars too, but it's not anymore. Technically, if you do like, you could do like two movies in a year and get nominated for Best Actor for both of them, just as Best Actor in general. So she was actually nominated for both of those movies technically, but she won on the strength of possession. I don't think they do
mm,
it that way anymore. But like Diane Keaton was nominated for Annie Hall and Mr. Goodbar,
mm,
which she should have won for Mr. Goodbar, in my opinion. Um,
yeah,
but
man. But yeah, it just how did that string of roles not kill her? I mean, apparently it almost
she
did.
didn't want to do this movie, and her
Yeah.
agent was very against it. And from what I read, Isabel was upset that after Story of Adele H, when she kind of became known in America and nominated for an Oscar, I think that's a Truffaut film, and still haven't seen it. That was 1975. So she tried to get movies in roles in America. The only movie she got was Walter Hill's movie The Driver, which is a great
Oh
early
yeah.
indie action film. And
Oh yeah.
her and Ronnie Blakely, who I also love, are great supporting female characters to Ryan O'Neal. And but after that movie, she was disappointed. I read about the Driver flopped, so she didn't feel
Yeah.
like enough eyes were on her.
Sadly.
Yeah, so she went back to Europe, and yeah, one of the first things she did was Nosferatu. So that kind of gets her back in this kind of realm, and even a darker, because Herzog is like he's like the madman of the French, I mean of the German New Wave. Sorry, um, I mean, even though he's like sane compared to his actors, he's
Yeah.
but he's crazier than Von Wonders. He's crazier than Fassbender. Fassbender kind of is a madman too, but Fassbender is a whole thing. Or as the kids say today, Fassbender is a whole vibe.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's also like at that same time, it's like he had Kinski doing Wojciech on stage, and then Nosferatu, and then Wojciech for
Film.
Herzog, and he's doing all that back to back. That's insane.
Yeah, because I really feel like
How'd that not kill him?
Herzog and Zulawski, more Herzog on a consistent basis with Kinski, like you're saying. But obviously, they're both people who want to pull these extreme psychological performances out of people.
Yeah.
They have the skill to do it. And I think the reason he was able to do it with Kinski is because Kinski is a stronger, i.e., meaner person than the Johnny. And also, I think he hated Herzog. In a way, he did great work despite Herzog. But getting back to via that into Isabella Johnny, so her life or her what do you want to put escapades at the Sebastianstrasse 87 deeply interests Mark. He figures he's gonna catch her in the act fucking Heinrich. So he hires a detective. Well, he hires a guy who is adjacent to his intelligence agency, and that guy hires a detective. And the detective, he not so subtly follows her all across West Berlin and up the stairs around the apartment and everything. And finally he gets in, and he's starting to kind of basically hint like, your husband's trying to find you. What's going on? And she starts acting really weird. She's like giggling and being sweet. She's like, "Can I offer you some wine?" And he's disturbed by this. I mean, he's not like thinking, "Oh, it's inappropriate," or "Yeah, I guess I'll drink it." Anymore, he's like very disturbed. He's like, "I don't think this is no, no." I mean, unfortunately, within a few more seconds, she doesn't break the end of the bottle against something and cut him with it. She smashes the end of the bottle so hard into his neck that it breaks inside his neck. And then she proceeds to still cut him with it. Very, very, very bloody, abrupt scene. And again, showing her in like a state of pitched kind of madness. The guy who hired the detective, Zimmerman turns out to be the lover of the detective. And I thought that was a wonderful, subdued twist. It was 1981. Nobody went, "Oh my God, there's gay characters." They don't use the word gay. They don't, it's just like, he's just like, "I sympathize with you, Mark, for your emotional problems because the detective, he lived with me." And he doesn't really have to say anything. You're just like, you read the write-ups and they all call them lovers, even though they don't use the word in the movie. But it's just very good writing, I thought. And so he goes up there and he's got a gun and he's ready to just, take her out if he has to. And he does find Emmanuel is the guy's name. He finds Emmanuel's body and he does start to get very upset. Obviously, his lover has just had their jugular destroyed and is laying on the floor. She starts pounding on him. He shoots at her, and it's very strange. He falls backward and he shoots at her, and he has had a glimpse of something really bizarre in the house. And I think this is our first glimpse. Y'all can correct me on that or not. I think that's the first time you see a character see this creature that she's sequestering in this hotel room. Is that correct? The
Oh
first time?
no, I don't
Yeah.
think so. I think I thought it was when the first detective, the one who was killed, Zimmerman, or the first one who was killed, he goes in
Emmanuel.
there and he goes into the bathroom and he sees this thing on the wall. But then Isabella Adjani's character has walked up behind him and stabs him with a broken bottle. and that's how he gets
Right.
killed. But he initially
He has
sees the
beheld it.
creature in the bathroom. Yeah,
And Zimmerman sees it in the bedroom, and it's either on the bed or it's sitting in the corner. I can't remember because it changes
and
position.
it's starting to grow. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
Yeah, and they do linger on the shot like several seconds just to make you know that this isn't going to be like we're not going to show the monster kind of movie like Blair Witch Project or something because we can't afford it. We don't care.
Mm.
But they show this creature, and I have watched this movie a lot, and I pause these scenes a lot, and I can't get my head around what it is. I mean, obviously it has bilateral symmetry. It's even on both sides. It has limbs of sorts or tentacles.
Yeah, it's an octopus type creature of some sort.
After a while, it starts to spread. It sprouts these very realistic looking but round eyes on the side of its head, and it has this
Yeah.
little tiny mouth that starts to move with has teeth.
Yeah, the thing is, anytime you see it, you never see that much of it, and you never see it for that long.
And it
And
changes
I
a
think,
little every time.
and it's brilliant because it looks good every time you see it.
It
And it's
does.
probably a result of they're not showing it that much.
And here's what I think is you could say if you wanted to do a total rationalist take on that, you could be like, well, okay, so Zimmerman sees this creature and he's freaking out because of the fear. Okay, yes, that's definitely an element, and also the fact his boyfriend's been killed. But when he starts to get ready to shoot Anna and he's seen the creature, he starts to act really weird. I mean, the way the music cues, and he misses her, even though he fires at her at point blank range. The bullet does not, it doesn't go through her, it kind of goes beside her. And she's just standing there. And he's frozen. And I personally, this is where I believe this creature has this powerful telepathic telekinetic power that he has these negative energy that affects people. That makes you feel fear, it makes you do things, it makes you lose your mind, you can't stand to look at it. It's kind of like HP Lovecraft.
Yes,
you know
yes. And here's what I'm thinking: just about everybody who encounters this thing, with the exception of Mark,
yeah,
whenever they see this thing, it's just like their world is blown out.
yeah,
It's just like, well, it's like Lovecraft. It's like, when you see the monster that barely gets described in any Lovecraft story, it's like,
right,
I saw the most ungodly thing. I can't even describe it. And it's like, that's what they're going through. It's, and we'll get more and more into that.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, and by this time, okay, so now you as a viewer have to go, well, I wasn't really happy about Anna leaving her family. But now she's like she's killed two sympathetic characters, and she's hanging out with this being. And
She's banging an octopus.
well, she tells I think she tell the detective Zimmerman, I made love with it last night, and he like about to lose his
yeah.
shit, man. And
He's resting.
yeah, he's resting now. Oh yeah, he's tired out because they made love all night. Mark is still kind of hounding Heinrich's mother, um, just playing games. He's playing a lot of head games. He's joking around with them, but kind of just trying to get one up on them, and because he's being real petty, because obviously he's insanely jealous. I get it, and uh, finally he finds out through these detectives that where this is this Sebastian Strasse 87 um, apartment. And rather than go himself, he sends Heinrich there. And so when Heinrich goes there, Heinrich thinks everything's hunky dory. He's trying to make love with Anna. He thinks everything's cool, but he's like, just your husband's flipping out on me, and is everything okay? And why are you acting weird? With me now. These are paraphrases, by the way. And so she's not really sympathetic to Heinrich, and Heinrich stumbles upon the being, and you see a lot more of it, and it's evolved. And this is where I think my theory comes in, because him with the physical acting too, and I think the fact he thinks he is mystically aligned, like with his chakras and all the stuff they allude to, like he's a hung fu, is that when he sees it, it's not just like he's in fear. It's like he's actually, if you listen closely to dialogue, he's blinded for a few seconds.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's freaked out, and then he's blinded, and he's like, I can't, he can't see.
Yeah.
Then when he starts to come to and see, he looks in the refrigerator with Anna, and there's remains of the original detective, or maybe the second one. And so he's like, "You're a murderer." And so they get into this confrontation. And of course, everything Heinrich's saying is the most rational thing any of the characters in the whole movie have said so far. He's like, "It's not human. You've killed two people. What is going on?" And it's like,
Yeah, but
that's what we're trying to figure out.
Yeah, his chakras, he just had them blown out though.
Yeah, his chakras are poo. And he's
he's
like,
not in a good place.
no, he's not. He's trying to write his karma, baby. And what, you can't do this. This is madness. And I just love this guy's accent because he always has this thing like he's ready for verbal and physical martial arts, and parlaying with you. But he's out of control. Like he's lost his mind. He's losing his mind intermittently because that thing I think is thinking at him.
Yeah.
He's just like,
well, I love the conversation he has with Mark afterwards because he's like sitting there talking to Mark and whirling around the hallway like a drunk ballerina or something.
Oh yeah, things escalate after Heinrich sees the corpse and everything. Anna goes into this long philosophical evil thing, and they talk a lot about evil in this movie and the force of evil and what it is. And I feel a lot of that is inside of this creature. I don't know if the creature per se is evil, but it seems to me like a manifestation of the evil in the psyches of those around it. Now that's what a lot of people say. They say, but I believe it really exists. The literalists I read today have a theory. They believe that of course, you get this, the monster doesn't exist at all. And at this point in time, I'm just tired of these people. Like, do you have no imagination? I mean, come on, seriously. We know there's no Santa Claus, but for God's sake, man, why are you trying to fuck everything up?
Well, I feel like there's an angle where you can take the monster as seriously or as literally as you want.
I think it is a literal corporeal being, and I think that's part of the plot because we're getting into body horror and flesh and sex. But it could have it did manifest out of Anna. That's true. So
it's like the whole duality and the doppelgangers and everything.
Doppelgangers, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a little bit of an explanation after this period where he finally gets Anna back to the apartment, and she recounts this flashback. And there's like first thing before they get into the flashback is he watches these home movies she's made. She teaches a dancing class. It's the first time you know her job. She teaches a dancing class, and she's particularly hard on this one girl, to where the girl's getting like a what do you call it, like a Charlie horse or something.
Yeah.
It's really hard to watch. It's real painful, but Anna's like really cold. And Anna keeps looking at the camera. It's almost like some like found footage movie. But then I realized, oh, did have someone film this on purpose. And Mark found the tape and he's watching and he's rocking back. I'm sure he's looking like, what the hell? And they're starting to peel back the layers on you. Who and what is Anna? And then there's, a scene where she briefly visits a statue of Christ with the cross of thorns. And it just lingers for like 30 seconds. Nothing really happens. It's just.
Well, I could almost think, do you think like with Bad Lieutenant,
mm-hmm.
do you think that the scene with Harvey Keitel and his dialogue with Jesus is like influenced by possession at all?
Maybe slightly.
Yeah, he takes it in a totally different direction.
Oh, yeah. And the Jesus is really like an actor standing there that only Bad Lieutenant can see. But
yeah.
Yes, I think so. There's a little angle.
But I have to think Ferrara had to have seen that and was influenced by it.
I would say he loved this movie, or at least watched it. So she sits down with Mark and recounts this flashback, which I'll be honest, the first few times I saw the movie, I did not know it was a flashback. I thought she was with Mark, and then she goes to this place, and then she come back with Mark. Her flashback is basically she's getting groceries, she's taking the apartment, and she's going to the metro, and it's like the subway, and it's just her. I think there's one person walking by when she first gets there, and she goes into this just cataleptic fit that lasts to me it lasted like 5 solid minutes. Maybe it didn't.
Yeah,
it could have been only 2. It felt like a long
it felt
time.
like 5.
And she's having a paroxysm, and she's literally like losing her mind, lost her mind, transported somewhere else. She makes all these kind of sounds that I've never heard women make in my life and don't want to hear again.
Miscarrying.
Yeah, toward the end, she's miscarrying. Like, finally, she falls on her knees and she's like destroyed the groceries, splashed them on herself, and just keeps screaming and convulsing. And it's super loud. And she's hopping around. This is like a one take kind of deal, it looks like, or at least a two take kind of deal. Like, good Lord. Yeah, it was a two take. I read that today. And he said most of the first take they used. And they only did the second take for backup in case of lab damage. Uh, yes, she falls to her knees, and yes, something comes out between her legs, just like chalk white and blood red. And she looks like she's in pain, and she's still doing this crazy screaming. Uh, I guess screaming kind of like somebody who would be giving birth, but even I've heard that, and that's rough. But it's like even more over the top. And that's when she says to Mark, the key bit of dialogue that I missed, and a lot of people miss, is then you flash back and you realize that it's she's telling him a story, and she says, "And I gave birth to my faith that day. I released it out." Because she talks about how inside her head there's like faith and chance. They're like two sisters.
Yeah.
And it's
Sister
like,
Faith and Sister Chance.
yeah, and it's like some kind of almost religious kind of iconography or something. And she gets really philosophical. And she actually, when she's talking about this stuff, she actually slows down and talks like a kind of rational person. I mean, very philosophical, but she's not screaming. She's not being crazy or mean. And she seems genuinely anguished, and this seems to be the root of her anguish. And she said she had to let Faith out, and after a while, I feel like the creature is Faith. I mean, it doesn't keep that name for reasons we'll tell you at the end, obviously, but that thing she's keeping in the apartment is Faith, the thing that came out of her in the metro. And I think it's still in possession of her mind. Like, they have a link. So it's like her child, and then it becomes her lover. And she says she's protecting it and all this stuff. And that also implies that there's a metaphysical level. Like, she's literally protecting her faith inside, the concept of protecting faith and faith going against chance, which that's a very Abel Ferrara like thing. So yeah, I'm pretty sure he saw that movie, this movie. Now that I think about it, Mark doesn't know what to do. Fuck, but he decides he's going to protect her. Now he knows she's a murderer, and Heinrich gets in touch with him when he flees the house, and Mark takes his time, and he's just like, "Yeah, meet me at the bar down the street, Heinrich." And Heinrich's mother's freaking out trying to find him. And so he meets him at the bar, and Heinrich, she has stabbed Heinrich. She's given one of her patented speeches of evil right before she stabs him. We're all the same. You and I, we're insects, we're meat. And she stabs him once with a knife, right about here. And so he's bleeding. He's tying up his wound, and he's all pitiful. And he's like, "Mark, I am wounded. You must help me." And Mark's like, "It's okay. I love you." And Mark kind of does the first thing in the movie that's really kind of immoral, in my opinion. That's like blatantly immoral. I mean, you could argue he's a misunderstood weirdo up till now, but he kills Heinrich in the bar, and it's kind of an ugly death.
Or in the bathroom, to be more precise.
Yeah.
Yes, it's very. It's very like Rube Goldberg. Like, he like takes a feather to make himself vomit in the toilet, and an old shoe. He finds them both in the trash area of the bar. Puts the shoe to jam the toilet, and then makes sure it will flush and overflow. And then makes himself throw up with the feather, and then calls Heinrich. And then Heinrich comes in, and he immediately hits him with the top of the whatever you call it, the lid of the
toilet tank.
And that will kill somebody. I know it will. I mean, if you hold that thing, that'll kill somebody if you hit him right. So it doesn't quite kill him, but it knocks the living fuck out of him. And then he stuffs his head into the toilet water with the vomit and pushes him down, flushes, and all his blood comes out. And that's it for Heinrich. And he has a little phone call with the mother, and the mother at first is pretending she doesn't know where Heinrich is. And eventually Mark kind of like plays around with her, and she kind of like reveals that, yeah, I did see him. He's dead. And Mark's like, "Oh, you've seen him he's dead. Oh no. Like, the reason she couldn't find him yet, but knew he was dead anyway, and maybe Mark did it, is because his soul was separated from his body. So here's another layer. Does she have these similar philosophies as her son? These kind of like out of body experiences? Does that correlate with this creature and the madness that it makes people have? It just kind of starts to spiral. It still seems to be semi coherent. He goes back and forth. He meets Helen, the duplicate of Anna, and he decides he's going to get Anna to escape. But when he goes to the house, he finds out that their friend Margit has been also killed by Anna, because Margit saw the creature. She apparently brought the creature to the house at one point, and Margit told her to get rid of it, and so she, killed her, slit her throat. Margit's played by Margit Christensen, who was a regular actor in Fassbinder's movies, by the way. Minor character, but pretty cool. So by this time, she's murdered 3 people, and Mark's murdered 1. It kind of like is an accretion of events. Like he wraps up Bob, who's sleeping, and gives him to Helen to take care of. And he's going to run away and take care of Anna and get her away from the police. And I guess he maybe thinks he's going to save her. Yeah, I think she feigns that she's going to go along with him. But really the creature is her main concern. Beyond that, it's one thing after another. Like he gets Heinrich's motorcycle, he goes back to the apartment, he sets it on fire. It's just for the hell of it. He's just like going nuts. One thing after their total chaos. He gets this cab driver, pays him to make a diversion with the police so he can ride off with this scooter of Heinrich's that he's stolen the keys out of his pocket when he killed him. A lot of weird details. Mark is a very, I can see he was a secret agent. After I think about it more, it's like he quickly has these ways to like make something out of nothing, like MacGyver it or James Bond kind of thing. I feel like his motivation is survival and getting his wife and getting revenge. So when he gets away from the crash with the cab, the police do manage to hit him twice, shooting him. And so he's hurt, but he is a tough motherfucker. I'm going to say this. He gets away on the bike and then the bike crashes. So he's like been shot twice. He's kind of gnarled like this. He's kind of walking like a zombie. And he goes into this house that's a spiral staircase apartment, and Anna finds him, and the police are right behind her. Well, no, someone else is right behind her, but can't make who it is at first. And the police are down at the bottom coming. He thinks he's dying, and she reveals the person behind her is Mark. And she said, he's finished. He's complete. Because she had been saying almost and forming, taking shape. So this being Faith has now become a total doppelganger of Mark. And he's just smiling like a weirdo. Like he's still acting like not human. And
he's got all the bad vibes.
Yeah. And so the real Mark, who's just like literally a bloody mess, he wants, I think he wants to take Anna and kill the doppelganger. And he tries to kill the doppelganger, but unfortunately, as he's getting ready to shoot, the cops come, and for some inexplicable reason, they just decide to massacre Mark and Anna. I guess a murderer and her accomplice, or 2 murderers. And it's like a bunch, and it's a rain of bullets, and they fall, but the bullets did not hit the doppelganger. So it's kind of like when the detective's bullets would not hit Anna because the thing was thinking. So the bullets just do not hit him or phase him at all. So more of this kind of telepathic power he has. And they fall down, and it's just very dragged out, and they're kissing, and they're both in agony, and all this kind of stuff. And you're thinking, oh, Mark's trying to have his last moment with her, but goddamn, she started all this. The Mark duplicate ascends the stairs, and he takes the gun, and he decides to hypnotize this person who lives or works in the apartment upstairs. They just an out of the left field character, just somebody that he grabs. So he kind of hypnotizes her into shooting Mark. So that seems to be the end of Mark. Mark's been shot a lot, and he's still fucking alive. And then he's like, "How do you want to end it?" And so Mark just crawls over, and because by now Anna's dead. Mark crawls over the stairwell and falls through the spiral staircase, and he's finally dead after God knows how many wounds. And this guy, he's got some kind of healing factor. The cops are coming, so the Mark doppelganger just suavely gets out and goes onto the roof and decides to go visit Helen, the other doppelganger who's taking care of Bob or whatever. Bob, yeah. And Bob has this kind of omen, and he's like, "Don't open it! Don't open the door!" Because he sees the silhouette of the Mark doppelganger. He knows it's not his father. And
Looking like a gecko against the door.
yeah, and they never, she's not exactly turning the knob yet. She's just like standing like she's contemplating it. But he freaks out. He runs upstairs. He drowns himself to death. And you start hearing real air raid sirens. So that's the omen from the beginning.
Mhm.
And once you start hearing real air raid sirens, then Helen starts noticing all these lights, like explosions are going on outside. And of course, they're close to the Berlin Wall. And the guy still isn't inside, the doppelganger. But he's just looking through it peacefully at her. And then she's just looking forward, and it keeps illuminating her face, the explosions. And she kind of smiles. And I kind of was like, that kind of made me feel weird about Helen. Um, so Zulawski has said that it is a nuclear exchange resulting from the East-West problem. U.S. for empire versus communism, and and that he meant that. It's not completely clear to some people why last few minutes is happening, accelerating these sounds and these explosions and air raids. But what does it mean to the characters? I don't know. I mean, are they some new species of being that will survive the Holocaust? I don't know.
Well, you're looking at a Holocaust in their lives, which transposes into a Holocaust worldwide, which basically all reflects a Holocaust going on in Zulawski's life.
Yeah, and Zulawski, yeah, because Zulawski's dealing with
Because in many respects, he feels like his world is ending.
yes, because he's been forcibly separated from his wife, and he's been forcibly separated from Poland.
Yeah.
And forced to live in the West. So yes, exactly. The whole schism is played out in this dramatic, hyper exaggerated fantasy horror tinged kind of mad love story. So
Yeah.
Justin here managed to see this film at the Astor the other night. We didn't know this
Oh,
until a few minutes ago. You have any?
just before, about a week before Christmas, I think it was, or
Oh
two
man,
weeks before Christmas.
you totally
Yeah.
forgot to tell me. All right, so what are your other extra closing thoughts on this just mad movie?
Well, it was crazy in a lot of ways. I mean, I thought it was even quite unusual the way Heinrich's character was portrayed as kind of this almost a sleazy type character. Always had this open shirt, and he was kind of. It was almost like he was trying to come on strong to the main character Mark.
Yeah,
Um,
I did sense that. I
but
did sense there was a little bit of flirtation there with Mark.
even though he was apparently having an affair with Anna's character,
But he loves
um,
everybody, and he has no boundaries. Remember, he's like a different.
he didn't seem to have many boundaries. So
Yeah,
he was an interesting character. It was a bit shocking, I think, even for the audience when the young kid Bob ran upstairs and just dived into the tub at the end and committed. The implication was he committed suicide.
he's the only
So
he's
that
the only rational human left in the movie.
Yeah.
He
yeah,
can't
yeah.
handle it.
He's the
So
only
I mean,
rational character, so he's got to go.
It's
yeah,
too
right
much
at
for
the
the
end.
lad.
So
Um,
it was a very my overwhelming sensation was it was a very intense film.
mhm.
So not easy to watch. Um,
Yeah.
it was quite, as you said before, quite impactful when he had the breakdown. Everything was seemed to be going so wrong from at one point for Mark's character, and he basically has a breakdown over a period of 2 or 3 days when the apartment just goes to rack and ruin, and
When he forgets
there's
how to talk.
pizza boxes and empty vessels all over the place. Um, and then somehow they pull it together, him and Anna, and they to try and bring themselves together as a family unit once more. Um, and as for the creature, well, that was just very intense. It reminded me a bit of uh, the Thing, John Carpenter's film, although I think that was a few years later, so maybe the Thing was a little bit influenced by
I think it was a year later. Yeah,
Possession, because they're quite close together. But I
the
think
vibe,
Possession
yeah,
was
the
more,
vibe is in the air during that period for horror movies. It was
yeah.
great,
Sorry, yeah, that was
great time.
1982. I think was the John Carpenter film, and this one's 81.
Mm-hmm.
My friend who I often go to films with, who is evangelical Christian, but his take on it was that the creature in possession was some sort of demonic possession. Was what basically what was behind it. That was his take on it. But
Yeah,
to me
I
it was
think
kind
that's a bit facile. I think it's just like you see the type,
yeah,
you see the creature, and you assume that. I mean, it's easy to assume that, but
yeah. So that wasn't my take. I think it was
right.
just more enigmatic than that.
Yeah,
It was never really explained what the source of this possession was. It was some form of possession. Yeah.
yeah, the
So
thing
I
took
thought it
hold of
was.
her. Yeah, it came out of her, took hold of her life, and
So I've recommended it to a couple of other people. A work colleague had seen it and said it was really good, but really sort of hardcore to watch, which it was.
yeah,
And I recommended it to my cousin who likes horror films, and he saw it as well and quite liked it. So yeah, I guess I would recommend it on balance. It's
that's
interesting.
cool.
It's never boring.
You have any closing thoughts on this, Justin? I mean, sorry, on this CF before we spiral down into the ending of things.
I've been flapping my gums this whole time. I
You have, but it's been
don't think I need to add
very
anything else.
communicative. Okay. Well,
I like the fact that it was there, as you say, just a few feet away from the Berlin Wall, and you saw some shots of the border guards and so forth. I think
yeah,
it was, yeah, her apartment was the building right alongside the wall, basically.
yeah, I
So
love
that was
that.
obviously quite symbolic, or meant to be symbolic in the film as well.
Absolutely, and I just love the shape of the building and the streets and the cobblestone kind of like tiles.
There's lots of urban decay, and
Yeah,
there didn't seem to be many people around. So even when the building is set alight, some people run, but there's not that many people running. It just
yeah, but
seems like the streets were quite deserted.
when he sits at a light, though, there is one woman who's standing there, who's an old like bag lady, and she's
Yeah,
celebrating it, like saying like God struck it down or burned it up.
that's right. Yeah, yeah.
It was hilarious. She was like going, "Go, Mark, burn it down." And that's a pretty risky shot to get because he's actually burning a room with real fire for just for a few minutes to get those shots and then putting it out. I mean, do you need some
Yeah.
kind of license for that? Do you have to rent the room? What do you do? How do you do that? Now you just use CGI, but they're like filming this real hotel. Zulawski was just a mad dog genius. So we'll wrap up this episode. I really appreciate Mr. Roberts and Mr. Cotton for giving me their points of view on this. I know Chuck's a huge fan, and it is, for the record, it is in my top 10 favorite films of all time and has been for some years.
Oh,
Its position changes a little, but it's always it's not in the top 5, but it's always between 5 and 10 somewhere.
so you're saying the film's gone many times platinum in your charts, Henry, because it's been in the
Yes.
top 10 for so long.
Before we go, Justin, though, had an important message for the audience that he wanted to share.
Thanks again for watching. We do value very much our audience. It's a big part of what we do, why we do what we do. So please remember to subscribe, like the videos that you've watched, and by all means, please leave a comment to contribute your thoughts. So thanks very much.
Well said. Thank you all for watching. Take care. Look out for those amorphous creatures.
And it's true that we cannot see that far behind. If we looked all the way in the past, we'd go blind. In the night, from the stars as they've all lived their lives, and the light that they gave as they burned and then died.